I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
I'm not even supposed to be here today! Oh, fuck you!
Come on, you want me to drive? You're supposed to be suicidal. Remember, I'll
Anybody
drive.
a drive?
Get in the car.
Fuck me in the ass. Fuck you, you fucking stupid cunt.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I am here with a brand new movie review. And this review is going to be for 1989's or 1990's Kindergarten Cop, directed by Ivan Reitman, and starring Arnold Schwarzenegger in one of his first comedic roles. So, what is the plot of Kindergarten Cop? Well, after numerous fruitless attempts, this LAPD detective named John Kimball has one last chance to put behind bars once and for all this drug kingpin called Cullen Crisp, who is trying to find the whereabouts of his son and ex-wife who run away with millions of dollars. So in high hopes of picking up clues, the mass officer has to find himself at this elementary school in Oregon and has to pose as a kindergarten teacher. But to keep up the ruse without blowing his cover, John has to keep under control this noisy classroom full of 5-year-old adversaries in kindergarten. So can Kimball show them who's boss? So how's my reaction? Well, we all pretty much know this was one of the first times, one of the beginnings of the time when Arnold Schwarzenegger had played in some more comedic roles. Around that, kind of before stuff like this and another Ivan Reitman film, he was mostly known for action stuff or, like the Terminator or Terminator 2, but this is one of the first times he actually played a comedy role. And I would have to say, this is honestly one of his well-known roles to my eyes. The plot is pretty terrific for a cop comedy film where this time he plays this cop that has to catch this drug lord and has to be at a school, pretend to be the substitute kindergarten teacher, and yeah, even though it's kind of somewhat is a bit of an action film, it is still somewhat of a comedy, so it's kind of more like a dark comedy in a way, and honestly it's one of the best dark comedies yet, and honestly another one of the best comedies of the 90s. So, how was Kindergarten Cop made? Well, originally, when they were casting the role of John Kimball, they originally wanted actors like either Patrick Swayze or Bill Murray to play the role of Kimball. Ivan Reitman originally even Danny DeVito was considered, who had actually worked with Arnold Schwarzenegger on Twins. But Ivan Reitman, may he rest in peace, he didn't really like the idea because he felt Danny DeVito's height would not make him as believable as Kimball, so his co-star Arnold Schwarzenegger got chosen for the part. And director Ivan Reitman and casting director Michael Kinich had auditioned 2,000 children for the roles of the pupils that Arnold Schwarzenegger is with, and at the time, Elijah Wood even unsuccessfully tried to audition for a role, but did not get one, sadly. But eventually, after Kindergarten Cop was officially shot and advertised and marketed, the film would go on to be released in North America to the public on December 21st, 1990, and made over $202 million worldwide. But the critical reaction was mixed, but Arnold Schwarzenegger earned praise for his comedic abilities and willingly being able to subvert his action hero image that had defined his career. What makes Kindergarten Cop great in my eyes? Well, what makes Kindergarten Cop a good movie in my eyes is the concept of this picture is unique for the time it was well written. It's got some fun action sequences to brilliant obstacles that our hero has to overcome, and adjust to being a life as a kindergarten teacher and a worthwhile love story. And Arnold was perfectly cast for the part, and the villains were definitely worthwhile. And there's still some fantastic comedy sprinkled in, and the kids in this movie are actually very hilarious and enjoyable from beginning to end. And Kindergarten Cop is not really as heavy on the action though as some of Arnold's other films before it, but it's still a very funny film, and it does deliver some classic lines from not only Arnold Schwarzenegger's character, but also his substitute kindergarten students. And Kindergarten Cop proves that like Arnold can also make some terrific family-friendly films as well, or comedy films in my eyes. Because to be fair, this seems like a family-friendly movie if you see the title, but it's not really. To be fair, it's still kind of more of an adult comedy in a way, but it has a kids' film concept. But it's technically still kind of a more grown-up comedy, if you know what I'm talking about. And like now. And plus, there are some like comedic roles Arnold Schwarzenegger's done that are good. There's Twins, there's Kindergarten, there's this film to talk about. You also enjoyed him in Jingle All the Way. Like, this is a great combination of humor and kids' moments and violence and suspense. Like, the last third and beginning of the film are what provides the action sequences, and then the middle second act, like the rest of the movie, is pretty much kind of just normal comedy fare-like. And nice story of a tough guy cop that has to become this love-respected kindergarten teacher, and obviously it does not seem like he's really suitable for the job, because at first he doesn't seem very tolerable around kids, but eventually, like after the horrible first day though, and eventually the second day, things obviously do improve. And the other great charm of the film comes from the kid characters themselves. They're nice, they're funny, and of course, star of the film, though, Arnold Schwarzenegger, does also do good flair with comedy and the tough guy softy you see at first when you first meet John Kimball. And so, how do we start off Kindergarten Cop? Well, this detective in LAPD named John Kimball has been pursuing Colin Crisp, sir, for a lot of years, who is his drug lord. Eventually, he arrests him for murder. And of course, this witness that had witnessed Crisp gun down an informant at the back of a shopping mall, but the man had given him information with the whereabouts of his former wife, and so Crisp claims that she stole $3 million from him and then fled with their son Colin Crisp Jr. and went into hiding. So John Kimball then gets paired up with Phoebe O'Hara, this fellow detective, and they have to go to Oregon to find Rachel and offer her immunity for testifying against Crisp in court. And O'Hara then gets tasked with finding Rachel, and her son, and has to post as a substitute teacher in a kindergarten class at the elementary school there. And both colleagues then get to know one another. And you do find out that Kimball is actually divorced and had a 13-year-old son. He had not gotten in contact in years with, though, because his ex-wife remarried. And O'Hara is dating the chef. And they do become friends. But during the flight, when they're trying to go over their case, there's these kids in the back of them that are screwing around and stuff, and John Kimball's getting reasonably annoyed, and eventually at one point takes one of the toy trucks away, but Phoebe gives the toy truck back. And when they're still fighting, he turns and says, "You do this again, I'm gonna jab this pencil through you." And then, of course, however, Phoebe ends up getting really sick, and so John Kimball is then forced to step in as the teacher. Then, of course, and now when it comes to some of the other characters of the film, you have Penelope Ann Miller, who plays Schwarzenegger's love interest in the film, and actually has good chemistry with Schwarzenegger, and is able to do well on screen with him as well. And also, Pamela Reed also plays O'Hara, who's actually enjoyable to watch in this role. The story was also good. It's not overblown. It seems like a story that would obviously have some annoying cliches, but surprisingly, there are some of the annoying cliches that actually either don't last that long, or actually they decide not to bring. Because why would they? And of course, the idea of this badass cop being paired with these kindergartners, having to place someone in a situation of discovery and love, and Schwarzenegger pulls this off really well. And when it comes to the school principal, Linda Hunt also actually does pretty well as the school principal, who initially is a little skeptical of John Kimball, but she also, like the rest of the class, she starts to warm up to him over time. And there's times when it's kind of an action at the beginning and the third acts of the film. And of course, though, it's also a bit of a hybrid rom-com drama. It also then gets bookended by the police storyline. And that's actually alright, too. It's actually well-balanced, and it doesn't really intrude too much on the main story. The film even can also actually give a pretty accurate outlook into teaching work. obviously, like, Arnold may seem like, at first, like, John Kimball seems like he might be right to take over, but the first day obviously does not go so well, and he sees it's actually really stressful and complex, and he has to be affected by all these issues, and to the point where the next day he pretty much kind of uses his police methods, like this whistle, to kind of get them to, like, kind of start behaving in class, and it doesn't hesitate to show how, like, rewarding the education of kids can be also very skilled and well partitioned. So John Kimball has to step in for Phoebe because she's not well. And so when he gets to the school that he's assigned, or where they were assigned, the principal, Ingrid Slowski, is very suspicious of Kimball. But eventually, like the first day does not go well, because when he introduces himself, a few of them keep interrupting or have to go to the bathroom, and eventually when he tries to get Penelope Ann Miller's character to help escort one of them to the bathroom, she tells them, like, kindergarten is like the ocean, you can never turn your back. And when John Kimball does, like, return to the classroom, he sees them all acting up, and eventually, like, he loses patience and yells, "Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!" at them, but then he feels bad, but then he does feel bad, so he races back to the hotel, races back to his car, and he grabs his pet ferret that he saw earlier when they were driving to the hotel, like, "Oh, that's my pet ferret, don't worry, she don't bite," and he introduces the kids to his ferret, and they all calm down. Because, like, he ends up using the pet ferret as a class mascot. And of course, the next day, like, he starts to realize that he cannot give the job role back to Phoebe. He can't step out because that's going to blow their cover. But he starts to use, like, some reinforcements for, like, good behavior and police training as, like, a module for the class he kind of has to take over. Like, where he has this whistle where you blow the whistle one time, grab his toy, take it to the carpet, you blows it two times, then they have to bring the toy back. Oh, before that, actually, I almost forgot to mention, like, when they're kind of knowing more about Kimball's, like, asking them all about their fathers and stuff, and you kind of, apparently, like, some of these kids mentioned, like, some sad things about some of their dads, or, like, one part is, "My dad divorced us, he went to go get a job in New York, and my wife hopes he dies quick." like, or even, like, one about, or, they're, like, at that bit, and then of course this fire alarm goes off, but they go out a little bit too late, and the principal's like, "It's a good you could join us for the fire alarm by 4 minutes late," and yeah, and so then the improvements do start to happen with the whistle bits, and eventually, like, he starts to master this really well, and right there, and, like, he actually has good chemistry with the class. Anyway, like, and he becomes admired and cherished by all the students in kindergarten. Eventually, though, O'Hara does recover, and then, of course, they go to this restaurant, and, of course, once they're, like, he sees, like, Penelope Ann Miller's character there, and her son also are there. And then, of course, so O'Hara poses as Kimball's sister from Austria, so she can help in the investigation. And Kimball's really starting to enjoy his undercover role, but you find out that there's this one quiet student that really won't talk much, and of course, he finds out it's because there's actually this case of child abuse, but the wife's obviously trying to hide it, but he doesn't like hearing this, and he's furious at the abusive dad, and he actually immediately assaults and threatens to press charge against the father of the kid that's being abused. But then, of course, he realizes that every other class is watching, and so he stops what he's doing, and then at first it seems like Principal Schlowski's going to fire him, but it turns out, like, Schlowski is actually seeing how well he is, decides not to really do anything about it, and is impressed with his performance and does not fire him, so I like that the principal doesn't fire him, and the principal's actually impressed by his methods, and also does start to warm up to him as well. And of course, like, he's also teaching his kindergarten class that's going to be taking role in this whole 4th of July party outdoor party as well. Like we're mentioning, or where they're mentioning like where they have to say like the lines of 4 or 3 fathers. Like I had 3 fathers, or and of course like Arnold even tells one of them, Abraham Lincoln only had 2 fathers, and yeah, the story's also well crafted and it's always believable. Like it's definitely consistent with the ideologies that add up to the story with a fast, slow ending. They used to like the ideologies that involve like stuff like the crimes, the jobs, the parenthood, the relationship, and the loyalty. And they really do emphasize the most important factors of the film. And the main method used, of course, was for the whole tough guy protagonist and to be turned into the sweet nature role. That's also great to watch here. Like I really like the scenes where, especially the scene where Arnold reads this one book and then he realizes it's this book he used to read his son that no longer is with him all the time, and that's where he does, and that's where his soft side actually does start to show up at that bit. And of course, the children also do play this whole iconography that's also very enjoyable to watch when you actually see them on screen, and many twists that get added to the tension of the film, especially from the comedy element. And of course, like, the villain in this really does allow the younger audiences to kind of appreciate the character, like, even though they know who he is and what he's clearly trying to do. Like, this guy's trying to go after his wife that claims stole money from him, and is trying to go after his family. And so, the dark music that plays that always associate with the character, it's conventional and it's feel good for the character, and like you know what the character's up to no good in those moments, and there of course you know the character's up to something sinister. Obviously it seems like a kind of guy you would feel bad for, but he's still technically a bad guy in a way, and actually eventually you will find out in a little bit that the money is actually fake here. Eventually, though, so because like Kimball's becoming fond of Joyce, like Penelope Ann Miller's character, Darren, of course, and his son's also one of his students as well. And Dominic actually is the kid's name, and also really admires Kimball, and that does start to see him as a father figure. But his mother will not speak of her husband that she's estranged with. So Joyce had told her son that his father lived in France and left because she saw his true colors and doesn't want to elaborate on the whole situation. But then through the conversations, like Kimball starts to realize that Joyce could actually be Rachel and Dominic is Colin Jr. in kind of a very shocking twist. Like, and I know why they have to go to this school and why exactly the family that Colin serves after that's actually his family. But then, of course, back in California, the case that has Crisp in jail gets closed because Cindy dies from cocaine. And so Crisp has no other witnesses, and he gets released. And so he goes to Astoria with Eleanor to go find his son and wife. And Kimball then learns about all this. And so him and O'Hara confront Rachel, and O'Hara reveals that she was never Kimball's sister at all. And they say that they have to protect her. She cooperates and tells everything, but she's obviously mad about this, and Crisp actually lied about money to be able to convince like drug dealers to go after them. It's definitely hard to feel sorry for this Colin Sir guy, because technically in a way he actually just lied about money because he wanted drug dealers to go after his family in a way. So he actually is not somebody you really should feel bad for in a way, and you should root for to get his comeuppance. Like, there's a side to the movie that's lighthearted, it's and funny. There's also another side that deals with topics like divorce, and it does get a little bit deep and like serious like drug crimes, and it's like I think when it comes to the stuff I like about this movie, I think I'd have to say that I do like the lighthearted comedy stuff a little better, but I like that it addresses more serious topics. Like, the movie does have 2 themes, and it kind of has that somewhat comedy children's movie like feel. Like, the other half is kind of like, one other bit is kind of this more adult like half where you have to deal with stuff like divorce or like the beginning and third acts, and like you do have, you do have many funny quotes in here. Like, whenever one of them asking about this teacher had to go away, or did she die, like when Kimball first gets hired, or when Kimball responds to this comment on the differences between this whole, like, men have a penis, women have a vagina. Thanks for the tip. Or like Kimball has to respond to this like kid that says like Kimball has his headache or has a tumor. It's not a tumor. Or enforcing class discipline, like here when he's introducing a method, there is no bathroom. Or when Phoebe his baseball bat, or you're not so tough without your car, are ya? Or many other funny lines, like especially like some more stuff like Dominic, stop whining. It's not a tumor. Like Arnold does comedy really well. Like this film, I think this film and a film I did not like at first didn't go all the way, but warmed up to it, and I actually do like it now compared to when I used to. Actually do work. Actually, I'll prove that Arnold can do comedy very well. And there's like fair amounts of action in the film, and like the scenes are pretty done well. It doesn't happen. It only happens like the beginning and third acts. When the action does happen in those acts, it's done very well. And like I like watching Kimball struggle with this new young Charges. It's hilarious, and then it gets heartwarming as it progresses. And Arnold emotes great sensitivity in the characteristics and the body language when he tries to find his own method to relate to the kids, and that's very cool, and it's very well written, I think. And of course, like another heartwarming moment is when the principal actually tells Kimball like the teacher he's really become, and you can kind of see the emotion in Kimball's eyes, like as he's like kind of suddenly coming himself to warming up to the students, and really starts to change his regard them from like annoyances to actually wonderful. And so things seem like they're going well, and Kimball like comes by like Penelope Ann Miller's character's house, sees that Dominic's not there, realizing that he's out for lasers when they're trying to leave the house. But then they see him stuck in the ladder, and John Kimball rescues him, and it seems like things are going smoothly. But then Crisp arrives to school, and he's then eventually like lies to the principal about who he is, and so he starts a fire in the library to be able to kidnap his son. And then when Kimball realizes Dominic's missing when they're evacuating the students because an actual fire drill's going on, Kimball goes to capture Chris, but then he uses Dominic as hostage, and Chris declares that about what he's really planning is about to shoot Kimball. But then of course like Dominic actually had sneaking. Whenever a fire drill happens, like Dominic always often saves the ferret as well, sneaks the ferret out under his jackets. And remember, like when he said when Kimball said his pet ferret doesn't bite. Well, guess what? His pet ferret goes out of Dominic's coat and actually bites Crisp in the neck, and Dominic is able to escape. And Crisp is out to shoot Kimball in the leg despite the pain he's received from the ferret bites, and Kimball's able to shoot him 3 times in the chest, and he's instantly dead, and so Crisp is finally gone. Now, picture when O'Hara's also trying to go after her, but Eleanor then eventually shows up as well and strikes O'Hara with her car, and then goes into the school, and then she sees her son's dead body, and she then shoots Kimball in the shoulder and demands to know her grandson, but then O'Hara gets up, then appears, and he knocks Eleanor unconscious with the bats, and Eleanor is then arrested by the police, and Kimball's then hospitalized. And the kindergarten students are sad to see this happen, and are probably worried about his life, and O'Hara's also going to hospital because, well, she got struck by Eleanor's car. And both of them are able to fully recover, where Arnold's eating Jell-O in the hospital, like, oh, this sucks. And then O'Hara visits the hospital, like, you gotta check out of here fast or stuff's gonna kill you. And then O'Hara's fiance, like, that Kimball had met in the hotel, in a pretty funny moment as well. And when he shows up, like, with some more goodies, like, he accidentally lifts the whole leg thing that Kimball's broken leg is hanging by, but then, of course, and that's leading up to the finale that I'll mention later. And Schwarzenegger's character in this film really does learn valuable lessons, like where at first, like, he seems impatient, like he really lacks like empathy or stuff, but he learns the lessons of like having patience, having empathy, like that stuff comes with teaching a class, and how education can actually be important, and also like even deals with the themes of family and loyalty, and like the kindergarten class actually become like this the new family for Schwarzenegger's character, because when you find out that he's kind of away divorced, and so that's kind of hardened Kimball a little bit, because he used to have a son, but then his wife took their son with her and they left him, and so he hasn't seen his son since then. So he's obviously been harmed by that, and so it kind of feels like he's able to have the kids he never got to kind of raise with this kindergarten class, and that's especially evident when he's like reading them that story that he used to read his son before they go on their nap. And like things are actually really starting to improve. Like, and also like the film's climax, I love the action suspense in the climax when Crisp starts the fire in the school, and of course when Dominic gets kidnapped and Kimball has to go for the burning school to save him, and that helps provide a satisfying conclusion to the story, and especially have this memorable soundtrack as well. And so speaking of conclusion of the story, now we get on with the finale, where after O'Hara has recovered, she goes back to the LAPD, but Kimball decides he's going to resign from his cop duties and he's going to stay in Oregon and become a kindergarten teacher at the school. And him and Joyce are going to be a couple, and they share a kiss as the whole class cheers. That's how Kindergarten Cop ends. Like beautifully ends right there. Because John eventually, after John is recovered and finally put an end to the whole Crisp case, he goes back to the kindergarten class. Joyce comes out of third grade class to meet up with them. And then, of course, the two kiss and the kindergarten students cheer. And so, like, Joyce and Dominic are now free from Crisp. They don't have to deal with Crisp anymore. Crisp's mom is in jail. She's going to be in jail for the rest of her life. And now, like, the school's going to be on better track because it was more like if one bad thing happened, they'd be shut down. And, of course, they did not have a single lie revealed bullshits. And even though they kind of did, it only resolves in, like, a few seconds after Kimball helps save Dominic after he's almost in danger that night when they're trying to flee their house. Honestly, I thought it was a nice way to end the movie. There. And of course, like, now, Kimball can now kind of, in a way, have the kind of way now start a new chance at a family he never really got to have, and so he can likely going to marry no Joyce now, and now he's going to become a father to Dominic. So it was a nice ending. I like this ending. So now would I have any bad qualities with Kindergarten Cop? Well, I think for bad qualities, the film could be a bit too long, and maybe just like 10 to 15 minutes got cut, then maybe it would be a bit tighter and better. There's some, of course, like, the big baddie Crisp and his mom, like, they're not really threatening enough because they don't really appear in the movie that much. They're like in the first act, and then they come around the end of the middle act again. And then the third act, and that's really it. It's like, I wish the two were kind of played with a more menacing tone. The final showdown was good, but if they had a more menacing tone, maybe the final showdown could have been even better than it already was. That's just me, though. That's just me. And also, like, did O'Hara really need a fiance? Because this guy doesn't really play much of a role in the movie either. He's just, like, there for, like, this hotel scene when John Kimball first meets him, and then he kind of just never comes back until when John Kimball's in the hospital at the very end of the movie. That's just me, though. But other than those, Kindergarten Cop is definitely a funny, heartfelt, dark comedy that is definitely totally worth a watch for Ivan Reitman fans and Arnold Schwarzenegger fans. So in the end, Kindergarten Cop is definitely worth a buy for your comedy collection for sure, but don't really expect to watch a family-friendly comedy because it's not really one despite the title making it look like one. It's definitely much more of a PG-13 grown-up comedy because it definitely does deal with some serious issues like divorce, and technically it's still somewhat of an action film at times. It deals with stuff like drug cases, with the antagonist, and stuff, so don't expect a lighthearted, fun little G-rated comedy, because despite the title making it look like one, because it's not really one. Anyways, that's it for my view of Kindergarten Cop, and we're not going to rank Kindergarten Cop. Here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you're a fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger and a fan of Ivan Reitman's work, that would totally watch or buy Kindergarten Cop for your collection, no doubt. And if we're not going to rank Kindergarten Cop, I'm going to give Kindergarten Cop an 8 out of 10. Alright, there we go, guys. That officially wraps up my review for Kindergarten Cop. Now I want to know in the comments down below what you guys think about Kindergarten Cop, if you've seen it, whether you love it or whether you don't like it. And until then, that'll be it for this review. Thank you all for watching. If you like this and want to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.